I mean this in the nicest way possible. Don't lose yourself to love. This is I Mean This in the Nicest Way Possible, and I'm your host, Richard Armand Mills. Let's set the record straight immediately, because I can already hear the misreads loading. This episode is not anti-love. It's not anti-commitment, and it's absolutely not hyper-independence propaganda. I love love. I respect partnership. I believe in devotion. But I also believe something a lot of people don't want to name out loud. Love should enhance your life, not replace it. A relationship is an addition, not a takeover, and not a hostile acquisition of your identity. It's not a slow erasure where you wake up one day and realize you don't even remember what you liked before you met your significant other. Because you can love deeply without disappearing. You can prioritize a partner without abandoning your friendships, without shrinking your career, and without dropping your hobbies. And without letting your personality get diluted into a shared schedule and a matching opinion. And I want to start with my baseline philosophy, because it's been true for my entire adult life. Whether I've been single or partnered, I've always prioritized two things: my career and my friendships. Not because romance doesn't matter, but because those two things, purpose and community, are life infrastructure. I've never believed in a relationship that requires you to go emotionally bankrupt everywhere else just to prove you're all in the relationship. And I didn't come to this mindset because I'm better than anyone. I came to it because I've watched what happens when people don't have it. I've watched friends disappear into relationships like they got swallowed. Texts stop getting returned. Plans turn into vague "we should" messages that never become anything real. Hobbies vanish. And friendships get treated like a temporary pastime you're allowed to have until romance arrives. And it's not just annoying. It's not just disappointing even. It's genuinely tragic, especially when the person is full of potential. I'll never forget this moment. I have a friend whose husband literally bragged about how she gave up her career and pretty much everything to marry him. And the way he said it, he thought it was romantic, like it was proof of devotion. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is not a love story. This is a funeral announcement. Because when someone gives up their identity, their autonomy, their goals, their friendships, and their future leverage, what they're really giving up is their safety. And I know some of you will say, well, that's what happens when you get married. Or that's what happens when you have kids. Or that's what happens when life gets busy. But no, that's what happens when people stop making an effort. Because I've seen every version of this. I've seen the couples who keep their individuality, and they thrive. I've also seen the couples who sacrifice everything, and they erode. And I'm gonna say something that might be a little spicy, but I mean it with love. If there are no hidden blocks like drama, resentment, or avoidance, maintaining friendships, work, and hobbies within a relationship is not actually hard. It's about commitment. It's about meeting people in the middle. It's about not always expecting everyone to orbit around you. It's also about being honest. Like, do you actually want connection? Or do you just like the idea of being included? Because a lot of people act like it's so hard to keep friendships once they're partnered. But the truth is, they either don't want to, or they're sacrificing themselves, or something is off underneath the surface. And here's the part I really want to land early. Losing yourself isn't romantic. It's destabilizing. It might feel loving at first. It might feel like devotion. It might even feel like security. But when you abandon your own life just to keep someone else, it creates a relationship that's fragile, not strong. Because if you don't know who you are without your partner, the relationship isn't secure. It's dependent. And dependency can masquerade as love for a long time. Today, we're going to talk about why people lose themselves in the first place. How identity erosion quietly kills attraction. Why career sacrifice is riskier than it looks. What friendship abandonment actually cost you. and why intensity gets confused with health, and why that confusion ultimately always catches up with you. Because the goal is not to scare you away from love. The goal is to help you build a love that coexists with your full life. A healthy relationship doesn't ask you to abandon your support systems. It joins them. And if this episode calls you out a little, good. If it reassures you because you're already doing this well, even better. And if it empowers you to rebuild parts of your life you let shrink, that's the point. Because you deserve a relationship that adds to you without erasing you. Let's get into it. When people lose themselves in relationships, it isn't usually because they're weak. It's because fear and conditioning team up and convince them that self-erasure is love. A lot of it starts with fear of abandonment. The unspoken belief that if you don't stay close enough, agreeable enough, or available enough, you'll be replaced. And when that fear is running the show, your choices stop being about joy and start being about prevention. You don't go to your friend's birthday because you don't want your partner to feel left out. You stop pursuing opportunities because you don't want them to worry you'll outgrow them. You shrink your world so the relationship can feel safe. But what's actually happening is this. You're treating love like something you have to earn by becoming easier to keep. And the cruel irony is, the more you shrink, the less secure you actually feel. Because deep down, you know the version of you they're keeping isn't fully real. And then there's social conditioning, which might be the sneakiest part. A lot of us were taught, directly or indirectly, that real love looks like merging, like constant togetherness, like prioritizing the relationship above everything else, like self-sacrifice is automatically noble, like independence is suspicious, like needing a life outside your partner means you're not committed. Research in psychology today describes how many people internalize the idea that love requires self-sacrifice and how some relationships slide into emotional fusion, where you stop knowing where you end and the relationship begins. They frame this through the lens of differentiation, basically the ability to stay connected without disappearing. When differentiation is low, people don't just choose closeness, they merge and call it devotion. That's why you'll see people start speaking in we language, like it's a personality replacement. They stop naming their own preferences, and they don't even notice they're doing it because it's culturally rewarded, especially if the relationship looks serious. Then there's wanting to be chosen at all costs, the pick-me mindset. And it's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet and polished. It looks like being the cool partner, the low-maintenance partner. You know, the one who doesn't complain, doesn't ask for too much, doesn't need much, and doesn't take up much space. But underneath that performance is a belief. If I become easier, I'll become secure. The problem is, security built on self-editing isn't security. It's compliance. Now, I want to make a quick distinction between attachment and trauma bonding. Healthy attachment builds over time through consistency, respect, and repair. Trauma bonding builds through volatility, high highs, and low lows, where the bond feels intense because your nervous system is hooked on unpredictability. In trauma bond dynamics, people often abandon themselves because the relationship has trained them to prioritize emotional survival over selfhood. They confuse anxiety with chemistry. They confuse relief with love. And finally, scarcity mindset dressed up as romance. This is the belief that love is rare, hard to find, and easy to lose. So once you have it, treat it like you can't risk upsetting it. You start living like you can't have standards and love. Like you can't have boundaries and love. Like you can't have a full life and love at the same time. But sacrifice is only healthy when it's mutual, chosen, and sustainable. Research on relational sacrifice makes the point clearly. Relationships do require give and take, but there's a real difference between This is a meaningful choice I can stand behind, and I'm slowly trading away myself to keep this. People don't lose themselves because they're romantic. They lose themselves because fear plus conditioning convinces them that love demands it. And here's where things get real, because identity erosion doesn't announce itself loudly. It happens quietly, incrementally even. And by the time people notice it, the relationship already feels fragile. Identity erosion starts when small compromises become a pattern. You skip one hangout. You deprioritize one interest. You adjust your tone, your schedule, your preferences just a little to make the relationship smoother. None of it feels dramatic. In fact, it often feels loving. But over time, something subtle shifts. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What will keep this stable?" Writers on self-abandonment describe how people don't wake up one day having lost themselves. They slowly trade pieces of themselves for proximity, approval, or perceived security. And because the trade is gradual, it doesn't trigger alarm bells. It just feels like maturity. A common sign is personality mimicking. You start adopting your partner's preferences as default. Their routines become the routine. Their social comfort levels set the ceiling. Their stress becomes the organizing principle of the household. You don't even disagree anymore, not because you actually agree, but because disagreement feels inconvenient. And partners sometimes mistake that silence for compatibility. It's not. It's disappearance with good manners. This is where we language replaces I entirely. And now, we isn't the problem. Losing the I is. When someone can't articulate what they enjoy independently, what they value separately, or what they want without referencing the relationship, the bond may look close, but it's actually unstable, because the relationship is no longer supported by two whole people. It's being held together by fusion. And fusion creates a power imbalance. When one person has abandoned their friendships, their career momentum, or their sense of autonomy, the other person, intentionally or not, holds more leverage. Decisions stop feeling mutual. Even in well-meaning relationships, this imbalance changes the emotional dynamic. That's why identity erosion doesn't just feel sad, it changes attraction. Research on long-term relational satisfaction points out that chronic self-sacrifice often leads to resentment and decreased connection over time. When someone gives up too much of themselves, they don't become more loving, they become depleted. And depletion doesn't create intimacy, it creates quiet distance. Healthy relationships don't require you to disappear. They require you to arrive as yourself and stay that way. Here's where the conversation usually gets uncomfortable and conveniently vague. Because sacrificing time for love is normal, but sacrificing trajectory is something else entirely. A lot of people frame career compromise as temporary. I'll slow down for now. I'll step back for this season. I can pick it back up later. But the research is clear. When someone repeatedly deprioritizes their work, ambitions, or earning power for a partner, the cost compounds. Momentum doesn't pause cleanly, it erodes. The distinction that matters: support is not the same thing as sacrifice. Supporting a partner means cheering them on, adjusting schedules when possible, and being flexible during intense seasons. Sacrifice means abandoning something essential to you without a clear plan to reclaim it. And here's the part people avoid saying out loud. A relationship that requires you to give up your independence in order to be loved is not secure. It's conditional. Because if the relationship ends or even just changes, the fallout is rarely equal. The person who stepped back is left rebuilding from scratch, with resume gaps that are hard to explain, confidence eroded, skills that have atrophied, financial vulnerability that was always masked as devotion, and a subtle pressure to keep the peace that was always there, even when things looked fine. Resentment doesn't stay contained. It leaks into the relationship long before anyone names it. This is the part people minimize until it hurts. Because friendship loss doesn't usually look dramatic. It looks quiet, gradual, explainable. Texts stop getting answered. Invites get declined with no reschedule. Plans become, we'll see. And suddenly, someone who used to be fully present has disappeared into their relationship. Research on adult friendship is consistent. Friendships aren't optional emotional extras. They're protective infrastructure. They buffer stress. They regulate nervous systems. They provide identity continuity outside romantic attachment. Here's what actually happens when friendships are deprioritized. Emotional support collapses into one person. Perspective narrows. Pressure on the relationship increases. And breakups become catastrophic instead of just painful. Loneliness increases, not outside the relationship, but inside it. Because one person was never meant to be your entire ecosystem. And here's where I want to name something that doesn't get talked about enough. As a gay man, I've experienced this pattern in a way that feels especially sharp. There's a specific kind of grief that comes from being deeply woven into someone's life, emotionally available, consistent, and present, only to be quietly sidelined the moment romance enters the picture. It can feel like being an emotional placeholder, a stand-in, a convenience until real life starts. And what makes it worse is that you can't always name it while it's happening. You just feel yourself becoming less essential in real time, and you keep showing up anyway. And that hurts, because it sends a clear message. You were valuable until I didn't need you anymore. What's even more damaging is what happens next. People who disappear into relationships often still want the benefits of friendship, support, inclusion, and loyalty without doing the maintenance. And instead of taking responsibility, that discomfort turns outward, into quiet blame, into guilt tripping, into resentment towards friends who moved on. But the truth is simple and uncomfortable. You don't get to abandon relationships and still expect to be centered in them. Friendships don't die because people fall in love. They die because people stop making room. And the irony? People who maintain friendships along romantic relationships report higher relationship satisfaction, not lower. Because when your emotional world isn't collapsed into one person, love has room to breathe. This is where self-abandonment gets romanticized and where a lot of people get tripped up. We're taught that real love is total, all-consuming, all-prioritizing. That if they're your person, they should come first, always. But intensity is not the same thing as health. Early on, disappearing into someone can feel intoxicating. There's constant closeness, validation, a sense of being chosen. But over time, something cracks. You start missing parts of yourself you quietly gave up. You tell yourself you chose this, but the resentment building underneath says otherwise. And that pressure is unsustainable. When one partner becomes the sole source of emotional fulfillment, regulation, and identity reinforcement, the relationship starts carrying weight it was never meant to hold. That's when devotion turns into dependency. Not because anyone is evil, but because the system is overloaded. Healthy sacrifice is mutual, temporary, and chosen. Not one-sided, permanent, or rooted in fear. When sacrifice becomes identity loss, attraction drops, resentment rises, and the relationship becomes fragile instead of secure. That's why all in isn't necessarily romantic. It can be risky. Because if love only works when you disappear, what happens when you need to come back to yourself? That question is where real relationship stability begins. And you can actually see this dynamic play out in real time with people we all recognize. Look at Khloe Kardashian. There was a period where her identity became heavily tied to her relationships, constantly adapting, constantly trying to hold things together. And over time, you could literally watch her rebuild herself publicly, recentering her career, her boundaries, and her sense of self. Same with Ariana Grande. She's had very intense, very visible relationships. But what's notable now is the shift. The music, the work, the individuality. It's not getting swallowed anymore. The relationship isn't the identity. And that's the difference. Love can be a part of your life without becoming the whole thing. For me, this has never been about choosing against love. It's about refusing to disappear inside it. I've always had two non-negotiables, whether I was single or partnered: my work and my friendships. Not because I'm cold, and not because I'm avoidant, but because I've watched what happens when people make one relationship responsible for everything. Like emotional support, identity, validation, purpose, and belonging. It never ends well. What actually works for me is intentional balance. That means I don't treat my relationships like a hostile takeover of my calendar. I look at my life holistically. If I've had a lot of partner time, I'll intentionally schedule time with friends. Sometimes that's once every couple of weeks. Sometimes it's once a month. Adult friendship doesn't require constant proximity, but it does require maintenance. It also means respecting individuality in real ways, not just in theory. When I'm writing or recording, that time is protected. When my partner decompresses in his own way, I don't police it or guilt him for it. We don't treat hobbies as threats. We treat them as oxygen. And one of the biggest shifts came through counseling. By unlearning inherited models of love that equated closeness with exclusivity. We had to name the expectation that us time meant all the time. And we had to reframe togetherness as connection, not ownership. And once that expectation softened, the relationship actually became calmer, not weaker. What I've learned is this: a healthy relationship doesn't compete with your support systems. It joins them. It doesn't ask you to abandon your friends. It doesn't quietly punish you for having ambitions. And it doesn't treat your individuality like a threat to intimacy. The right partner doesn't need you to be smaller to feel secure. They need you whole. And the moment you stop trying to prove love through self-sacrifice, you start experiencing it through mutual respect instead. So that brings me to this week's challenge, and it's intentionally simple. I'm calling it the Go Find Yourself Challenge, because sometimes we need to GFY. I want you to identify one area of your life where you've shrunk for love. Not dramatically, not catastrophically, quietly. Maybe it's a friendship you stopped nurturing, or a hobby you slowly let go of, or career momentum you paused temporarily, or a version of yourself you stopped prioritizing because it felt easier to center someone else. Now, within the next 7 days, do one thing that reconnects you to you. Schedule that coffee. Block the creative time. Say yes to that opportunity. Recommit to the thing that made you feel like yourself before everything revolved around one relationship. No secrecy, no apology, no justification. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing yourself. You don't need permission to take up space in your own life. That's not selfishness. That's self-respect. If your relationship is healthy, this won't threaten it. It will strengthen it. Because here's the truth. If a relationship can't survive your individuality, it was never stable to begin with. Love isn't erasing yourself. And devotion shouldn't make you disappear. Intimacy should not be proven by how much of yourself you're willing to give up. Healthy love expands your life. It doesn't narrow it. It makes room for your friendships, your ambitions, your joy, and your identity. It doesn't quietly replace them. Season 1 of this show was about knowing yourself. Season 2 is about protecting yourself in real life. And relationships are where that self-trust gets tested the most. So if this episode made you feel empowered, called out, or reassured, good. That means you're paying attention. Because the kindest thing you can do is be real. Real about what you need. Real about what you won't give up. And real about who you are outside of love. I'm Ram, and thanks for getting real with me today. You just finished listening to I Mean This in the Nicest Way Possible, written and produced by Richard Armand Mills.